So, a few days or a week ago, whether to celebrate the Marvel vs. Capcom collection being announced or as something made during the short lived hype of Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite or some other third thing, someone made a little grid to list out a hypothetical Marvel vs. Capcom roster 5x6, 30 characters on each side, 60 in total. And some people have filled up their hypothetical rosters for fun, and I figured, sure, why not? I'll list out all 60 characters, I'd choose and explain why to the best of my ability, alongside some possible movesets or mechanics. I've been a fan of the Versus series since playing the PS1 port of Marvel 1 so long ago. It was my first fighting game even, next to Smash 64. Please note, I'm no expert on fighting game design. None of this should be seen as fact or like I know what I'm doing or saying. I'm just a creature who likes when characters beat each other up in an over-the-top, fast-paced way, and those characters are from Marvel Comics and/or Capcom games. Also, this is going to be pretty off the cuff with like little scripting outside this intro and the outro, so buckle up, kids. The first official title in the Versus series was X-Men vs. Street Fighter, so I'm bringing them back. Like, I don't gotta explain the appeal of Wolverine, Cyclops, Rogue, Storm, Magneto, right? Yeah, of course not. But the Street Fighter side has a little bit of a shakeup. You gotta include the three classic World Warriors, but you might have noticed their looks are all inconsistent. Well, that's because I'm choosing specifically these costumes, these designs. Street Fighter 6 Ryu, Street Fighter Alpha Chun-Li, and Super Street Fighter 2 Ken. There's a lot of choices for the next two, but instead of characters like Guile or Charlie or Blanca or even Akuma, I chose Street Fighter Alpha Bison/Dictator, represented specifically with his Street Fighter 2 artwork solely because I need you to understand, the cape has to stay on. As for the last Street Fighter, I gotta give it to Juri Han. The idea that a game as chaotic and fast-paced as Marvel, where everyone feels some kind of busted, hasn't had time for Juri to be in the main roster is very upsetting to me. Look at how upset I am. The next five I'm just calling the Avengers picks, and again, I don't gotta explain anything. Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, Thanos, and Doctor Doom. You might be wondering why Doom is counted as an Avenger pick when he's obviously a Fantastic Four villain, but like, when has anyone thought about the Fantastic Four outside of the bad movies, Super Skrull's origin, or the MCU trying to make it happen in their universe? Exactly. He's a bigger threat to the Avengers than just the Fantastic Four, in my opinion. The next five I'm calling the Darkstalkers picks. Ruby Heart and Amingo are not official Darkstalkers, but you can't tell me they don't belong. Like, look, come on. Look at this little freak. Look at this Yuri bait. Then our girl, Morrigan, obviously. But here's where things get a little weird. No Anakaris, no Jeddah, no Hisenko/Lele, no Felicia, no, instead, we're going with a baby Bonnie Hood, aka Buretta. I think technology has improved enough to bring her into the modern generations, and also, I think she deserves to be in more than just Darkstalkers and Marvel 2. And the last one, I'm picking, conceptually, my favorite Darkstalker, Bishamon. I mean, a magic suit of samurai armor and sword taking control of someone's body while they're still pretty conscious of what's happening is pretty brutal. Plus, we don't have many actual samurai in Marvel outside of some dork with an obnoxiously good utility super. These five I'm just gonna call the Spider-Men, even if they're not all Spider-Man, but fuck it, whatever. Spidey, Venom, Carnage. The big difference between the other two and Carnage can actually be seen in Cali King's mod for Marvel 3, where he's scrawny, fast, and has a lot of slashing and pressure. Then there's Miles Morales, who is different from normal Spidey in a similar way to how they're different in Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Peter's faster, Miles hits harder. Think of it like Pikachu and Pichu in Smash Ultimate, where Pikachu has a more nuanced understanding of how their electricity works and as such does normal amounts of damage, But Pichu's a kid, so they kind of throw everything into every attack to hit as hard as they can. Hey yo, so side note, can I just say how I hate that there's no official superhero name for him that isn't just Spider-Man and is also good? Like, Kid Arachnid stinks, and Spidey is one of the worst things I've ever heard. I know, narratively, the fact that he's also called Spider-Man is good and cool, but for something like this, it's something that bothers me a little bit. And for the last one, Spider-Gwen. This time, I'm not invoking the mod character from Marvel 3, kind of. I want a new non-Peter based movement, which I am not creative enough to come up with, but the one thing I'd pull from the mod is the Gwenom install super, as that's a genuinely based design choice that I'd never want to get away from or not include. Also, another name-related side note, I would name her Ghost Spider in the roster 100%, even if everyone just knows her as Spider-Gwen. Now for the next 5, I call these the Mega Men. You'd expect me to start out with like classic Mega Man or maybe X as the first choice, but then again, you don't know me. First one is Mega Man EXE, who I feel would operate similarly to Phoenix Wright, except instead of grabbing evidence, they load in chips and use them with various inputs, and finding specific chips allow him to combine them into a big attack or even a super. Next, we've got Classic Proto Man, who I feel would be the answer to Classic Mega Man and Roll being in the first 2 Marvel games, working like they did. If I had to give him specific weapons like how the others had Leaf Shield, Tornado Hold, and Mega Ball, I'd give him the Jewel Satellite from 9, the Flash Bomb from 8, and the Top Spin from 3, because that's an underrated weapon and I'm tired of letting people say it's bad. Next is a really fun pick, or at least I think it's fun. The Bond family. You might be wondering, why the 3 of them and not just Tron? And also, how would all 3 of them work together? Well, it's easy. You know, Tatsunoko vs. Capcom? You know the Doronjo gang? Or just Doronjo in the game? Yeah, it's like that. Although, if I gotta have some kind of idea for a level 3 super, I'd definitely make it activating Theodore Bruno to just go apeshit on the opponent. Next is Vile for Mega Man X. I think the Capcom side of characters is sorely lacking in Arsenal-type gun characters, outside of, like, Chris Redfield. So I think having a big zoner with lots of guns would be a lot of fun. But I wouldn't want him to be like Injustice 1 Deathstroke. No, I'd have him be as brittle as a paper plate, and only really good at keeping pressure, but little else. Less of a glass cannon and more of a glass Gatling gun. And lastly, I gotta pay my respects to one of my favorite characters ever in media, Zero, but specifically the one from his own series of games on GBA, Mega Man Zero. His only official appearance in a fighting game was SVC Chaos in 2003, and that's it. My man deserves to be in the spotlight again. The final 30 are all either picks I think could do with a rework after being featured only once or twice, or picks I want to see in a legit versus game, starting with Cable. I want him to be totally unchanged, nothing new, and don't ever believe a word I say. I'm a liar who will break your heart. Okay, the one thing I'd actually change for his level 3 is to have him teaming up with Deadpool. Doing what though? You can imagine what they'd do. I don't gotta do all the work for you. Next is one I so desperately want to see happen. US Agent. Now, one can make the argument that it's just evil Captain America, but I want him to be an Echo Fighter of Cap, but like more evil, more hard-hitting, and with more guns. Like, Cap is capable of packing heat as a soldier in World War II, but I feel like US Agent would pull out the blicky and bust a Cap in a Mingo or whoever. Next is Gamora. I want her to remain more or less the same, except kind of like Captain Commando, I want some moves to have other various Guardians involved, including Mantis. I don't know what she'd do, but, you know, I'm sure she'd look cute doing it. Then there's Thor. I want Thor to be good so bad. He was just extremely meh in Marvel 3 and Infinite, and there's potential to make him either good or at least fun to play. And the last one is very much kind of a meme pick that I think would work, especially given how the custom Marvel 3 character mod looks, and that's...
You can't escape me! I'll chase you to the ends of the earth! You're an easy target now.
Anyway, the next 5 are 3 returnees and 2 new guys. I hope you're keeping track in spite of all the numbers. It's time for Team DMC. Dante. Give him a moveset similar to the original Dante, but update it with DMC5 stuff, including Devil Sword Dante. Give him a Sin Devil Trigger too. Why not? Virgil, same deal. But since he doesn't have much new, give him a Sin Devil Trigger version of Dark Angel. Next, there's Nero. And first things first, he should have 2 default looks, DMC 4 and 5. As for gameplay, I think making him more like DMC 5 with the various Devil Breakers and making him very Red Queen focused is the way to go. Even if it's not congruent to the DMC 4 look, who cares? Let him be cool regardless of how he looks. Next, there's Trish, and I want her to have something new now that Devil Sword Sparta isn't in the equation anymore. In DMC 4 Special Edition, she can use some amount of lightning augmented martial arts, so I think that alongside Luce and Umbra and also the lightning traps would be a good basis for a new Trish. And finally, we gotta have Lady in there. And it's really simple to explain. Just make her a Lady Cable with melee based on Kalina Ann, since there's a whole ass bayonet on it. And finally, the last 20 characters. There's no theme to these picks. I just think they'd be cool to have in or back in, starting with Iron Fist. I just want a fun Rekka character in this game. Following him is Ironheart. I don't know exactly how to make her different from normal Iron Man. I guess just make her more of a zoner than just having zoning options. After her is Black Panther. I just want him to be in a game people can get excited about again. That's not to say no one liked Infinite. I mean, people are trying to revive it with a mod that makes it have actual appealing art direction. But I want people to be hyped for Black Panther for more than like a few months. Following that is Luke Cage, aka Power Man. I want this dude to be slow, hit hard, and have armor on a bunch of his moves. I want people to complain about having to fight him. It'd be hilarious. And lastly, I want Scarlet Witch in there, because I'm making the executive order to not have Doctor Strange in there, but I want someone like him who's magic focused, and Scarlet Witch, I feel, is a good opposite to Strange. Dark, drawing upon forces that are beyond mortal control. I think it'd be cool. On the Capcom side of I want them back or here for the first time, Beautiful Joe. Me, personally, I think it was a coward move to not have Joe in Infinite so he could be in the story mode. Anyway, change very little about him except maybe involve Sylvia and Captain Blue somewhere. Next is Jin Sao Tome, who, fun fact, is the first ever Gar character I was ever exposed to. Do the kids remember Gar? Probably not. I think Blodia should be involved more, like his level 3 should be some kind of big move he can do, like Planet Smasher. Next is Frank West, who should be as unchanged as possible, including the voice actor. If the hypothetical dev team and or Capcom cannot secure TJ Rotolo for this hypothetical Marvel 4, then I'm hypothetically killing the project. I'm so hypothetically serious. Anyway, next is Sun Sun, technically Sun Sun the Third. I got nothing other than I want her to come back because she's cute, and I want more Sun Wukong / Satan Taisei characters in video games. And finally for this row, Lady D from Resident Evil Village. I don't gotta explain anything to you. If you disagree, you're wrong and some kind of freak, liar, or a cop. Also, obviously, her level 3 super would be her transforming into the big flesh dragon thing, duh. And now, the last Marvel row, starting with America Chavez. I think you could do some cool things with her portals, like a Captain Marvel without lasers and with more thinking with portals. Next is Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. I think I don't gotta explain the appeal, but for gameplay, I think something like Reli's Clover from BlazBlue, where she's a puppet character with more synchronized movements would work. Next is Moon Knight. I think he deserves to be in a fighting game, calling out Dracula and throwing out random bullshit. Next is definitely one of the more popular, why would you pick this, characters, which is a kind of weird oxymoron, but whatever, Howard the Duck. I think he'd be fun, like some kind of grounded Rocket Raccoon, which is a wild ass thing to claim, but it's true. Howard's just a normal dude, but a duck, and he goes on adventures, and sometimes he's got a gun. And for the last Marvel character, another weird pick, but I think she deserves a shot. Dazzler. She can shoot beams of light, and she's a singer. She's cool, but I think she needs some kind of wrinkle for gameplay, and for that, we gotta have a brief little history lesson. In the mid-2000s, Dazzler and other British mutants in the X-Men series started a new comic run for their group called The New Excalibur, where they fought baddies with the powers of the original X-Men, including Dark Phoenix, who kills Dazzler. After beating them and calculating the collateral damage and casualties, Dazzler wakes up, having revived herself somehow. She dies and comes back several more times in this and other stories, and Marvel to this day have just not explained what this immortality is about, which I find hilarious. Anyway, give her a mechanic like Dark Phoenix, except not totally busted, where she has an opportunity after getting KO'd with 3 or more meter to do like a big Frieza-esque final desperation attack before going down. I think it'd be cool. And for the last Capcom row, I don't gotta explain anything about the first 3. Asura, obvious. Strider, you'd kill me if I didn't mention him. Captain Commando, I'd kill me if I didn't mention him. But then there's the last 2. I wanted characters who would never make it in Marvel. Characters with potential that could totally get the job done. And I firstly had to go with a feminine presence introduced in Monster Hunter that has enchanted players since their introduction, and the community can get behind the inclusion. I am, of course, talking about the Handler. You should never believe a word I say. It's my Joker's trick. I just lie. Nah, but people are too mean to this poor girl that likes monsters and monster hunting. Give her a chance and she can be good. And finally, the last character, someone who hasn't gotten action since his original game, someone who deserves a chance for the same kind of glory his game gave him. I am, of course, talking about Arthur. The one from Knights of the Round, I mean. I think you can do something neat and or funny with him, like making him modern looking but faithfully animated with being very stiff looking. Also give him some kind of like upgrade mechanic where he gets bigger and better armor like in the game, with Lancelot and Percival also being upgraded because you know they gotta be in the level 3 super. Oh yeah, also for unlockable characters, both sides get one each, with Squirrel Girl and Jean respectively, mostly because I want them to be overpowered and hilarious to try and balance. So that's it. That's my list of characters. I gave my explanations as to why I chose these characters in particular, and that's it. But rather than asking about that, some of you might be asking why I even did this. Why go out of my way to make a hypothetical roster and tell the entire digital world about a hypothetical game that will probably not even exist? Well, the answer's simple. Because it's fun. Why should someone not do something like this if it isn't fun? Why deny yourself such simple pleasures like creating something for the sake of enjoying it? Because you're not working on something more important? Things like that, while important, won't feed the soul of a creative. They just weigh us down. Only by expressing yourself in a creative manner can you find some kind of fulfillment, no matter how small. And it doesn't matter how small it actually is, because it adds up over time. You'll look back on the things you've created for the sole purpose of creation, and whether you look back fondly or with some amount of embarrassment, your memories with what you've created will stick with you, because it's something you made with your mind, body, and soul. Oh, and also, I made this because I was still in YouTube jail, and as of writing, I still have another, 27 hours until I'm finally freed, probably. Anyway, thanks for watching.